After describing the necessity of married life, Kardama Muni asserts that marriage and other social affairs are stereotyped regulations for persons who are addicted to material sense enjoyment. The principles of animal life, eating, sleeping, mating and defending, are actually necessities of the body. But those who engage in transcendental Krishna consciousness, giving up all the stereotyped activities of this material world, are freed from social conventions. Conditioned souls are under the spell of material energy or eternal time, past, present, future. But as soon as one engages in Krishna consciousness, he transcends the limits of past and present and becomes situated in the eternal activities of the soul. One has to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions in order to enjoy the material life. But those who are taken to devotion service of the Lord are not afraid of the regulations of the material world. Such devotees do not care for the conventions of material activities. They boldly take to that shelter which is like an umbrella against the sun of repeated birth and death. Constant transmigration of the soul from one body to another is a cause of suffering in the material existence. Conditioned soul in material existence is called samsara. One may perform good work and take his birth in a very nice material condition, but the process under which birth and death take place is like a terrible fire. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his prayer to spiritual master has described this. Samsara, or the repetition of birth and death, is compared to a forest fire. The forest fire takes place automatically without anyone's endeavor, by the friction of dried wood, and no fire department or sympathetic person can extinguish it. The raging forest fire can be extinguished only when there is a constant downpour of the water from the cloud. The cloud is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. With the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in. And then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall, can the fire of material existence be extinguished. This is also explained here. In order to find the freedom from the stereotyped conditioned life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonalists indulge, but in devotional service, chanting and hearing of the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the actions and reactions of material existence. It is recommended here that one should give up the conditioned life of this material world and the association of so-called civilized human beings who are simply following, in a polished way, the same stereotyped principles of eating, sleeping, defending and mating. Chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as Tvat Gunavada Sidhu. Only by drinking the nectar of the chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta part. So Kardama Muni is continuing his glorification or his conversation with the Supreme Lord who appeared before him. The previous verse said, "O my Lord, you are the master and the leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you who are eternal time. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and beastly followers of these affairs and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet, by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussion with one another, can be freed from the prime necessities of material body." So, This is a very nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very much applicable to the Krishna consciousness movement, especially the way Srila Prabhupada set it up as an international movement, going to America and making the living entities surrender directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in direct devotional service without any consideration of their past, who they were, what they were, whether they had obligation, whether they had no obligation, nothing. Start afresh, surrender to Krishna, and we started. This is never the normal path. In the normal path, everything needs an adhikara, everything needs a qualification. You want to join college, you have to qualify in school. You have to go into 10th standard, you have to qualify in 9th standard. So qualification, material qualification is required. But qualification is one thing. Another thing is one will have so many bondages. Just like one will say, okay, I am qualified, but I don't have a fees to go to the 10th standard. I don't have money. Then also you cannot go. You don't have Shakti to go. You have qualification, but you don't have. So, in the same way, to take up to spiritual life, to take up or to connect oneself with the Supreme Lord, normally speaking, there is a qualification of knowledge and detachment. One has to have knowledge, one has to have self-knowledge, who I am, that I am not this body. Then one needs to have detachment. That means free oneself from all the desires of this material body and extended desires that come from this material body out into the material world. So one has to free himself from all these and then get transcendental knowledge, and then one can perform bhakti. But here, if you see, in the purport itself, in the verse itself says, however, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs, who have given up, these are all stereotyped worldly affairs. Everybody is taking birth, everybody gets educated, whatever it is, learning stage, brahmacharya, learning stage. Everybody after a certain age gets married. After that, he has children, he runs his family, he has his family aspirations in the society. Then after that, the children are no longer children. Then the father and mother have become old, who were young have now become old. So finally, they leave the body. This is called stereotype worldly affairs. In Krishna consciousness movement, the primary force is devotional service to the Lord. Forget all other obligations. You and your devotional service. And what is devotional service? It is directly connecting oneself with the Supreme Lord in terms of chanting and hearing His glories of the Lord and serving the Supreme Lord, serving the deity of this Lord, serving the holy name. So the 9 processes of devotional service. That is what in our Krishna consciousness movement, everything falls under the 9 processes of devotional service. So this is a direct method. Stereotype, worldly affairs, we are not involved in. Sometimes devotees also get confused that, okay, we are a movement which is following the Vedas. So then, because the outside world, we never followed any Vedas, nothing. So now we have to follow the Vedas. We have to follow the various duties that are being described in the scriptures. That is now my new path. I have come from the outside world where there is no dharma at all. Now I have come here and I want to follow all the principles, secondary principles of dharma. As Prabhupada says in the last purport also, I should get married, I should do this, I should do this, so many things. But all these things, one should not get confused. Our path is the Bhagavata path. The Bhagavata path is the path of direct devotional service. That is why sometimes some people also, they criticize, let's say they criticize, you people are making young boys join Krishna consciousness movement. Even during Prabhupada's time, so many parents came and complained, and Prabhupada insisted if they want to go, they can go, but if they want to be here, I cannot tell them to go. So there are so many details of so many devotees who were getting tremendous pressure from parents, the children, from well-to-do families. And Prabhupada explained to them that, Krishna, he is serving Krishna and he has no other obligation like that. So, a little surprising it may be. Normally, a sadhu is supposed to, tell people to follow the normal, be dharmic and follow the dharma and all these things. But here we tell, give up all that dharma. Why? Because we are following sarva dharman pariteja maam ekam sharanam vraja. That is what Krishna consciousness movement is following. When, of course, we want to spread Krishna's words to those who cannot surrender like that, to follow the next step. So therefore, even though we follow the path of sarva dharman pariteja and maam ekam sharanam vraja, even though we follow, we teach others to follow the Vedas, follow the Vedic injunctions, so that one day, by adding also Sankirtana, chanting Hare Krishna, you can come to the path of pure devotional service. That one has to understand. Our parampara is meant for that. Whether one situation, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, one is a grihastha, brahmachari, sannyasi, or a vanaprastha, or is a brahmana, kshatriya, shudra, all these things are secondary. As long as the body is there, some of all these things will be here and there. Even in our Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada made grihasthas, full-time devotees also grihasthas. He made this arrangement. But that is not, now you cannot take shelter of that and try to, go into the Vedas and find out how a normal grihastha should live. A normal grihastha should live, so many injunctions are there, you will get completely lost. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita also, in the beginning, Krishna teaches Arjuna, don't get carried away by the flowery words of the Vedas. So the idea of Krishna consciousness movement, the idea of Srila Prabhupada's or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is not the normal pravritti marga, but it is nivritti marga. Nivritti marga means these things are whatever minimum is required, we accept as far as material necessities of life is concerned. This is very important. Bhakti cannot be performed if you live lavishly. Bhakti cannot be performed if you voraciously eat. Bhakti cannot be performed if you sleep too much. Bhakti cannot be performed eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Similarly, bhakti cannot be performed if you are too insecure about life. It cannot be performed. First that consciousness should go, that animal consciousness should go. And that by chanting this Hare Krishna, by associating with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, slowly one becomes detached from this material body. Because this material body is the biggest trap. The biggest trap and biggest suffering for the soul is this material body. identification with this material body. The spirit soul, even now, when it is trapped in this body, it is trapped through the rope of ignorance. The spirit soul is Chit Swarupa, is knowledge. And it is trapped, it is Brahman, it is trapped through ignorance. Can ignorance affect a dead matter? No. Can knowledge or ignorance affect this kartal? No. Knowledge and ignorance makes difference for whom? Only for a soul. For Brahman, another kind of energy. So how are we? So we are Brahman. How are we trapped in this material world? Through ignorance. And how can we untrap from the ignorance? Through knowledge. And this knowledge is not knowledge of which the universities teach. It is a knowledge that opens our eyes. In other words, a knowledge that changes your perception. It changes how you look at your body and how you relate with your body. It changes your perception how you relate with the bodily demands, bodily urges. It changes your perception what is the purpose of, having taken this body. It changes the way you see things. That is knowledge. That knowledge, as Prabhupada is explaining here, it is a rain of mercy from the Supreme Lord coming through the spiritual master. Samsaradhava nalalida loka tranaya karunya ganaganatvam praptasya kalyana gunarnamasya vande guroshi charanaravindam. So it is through the mercy of the spiritual master that the mercy of the spiritual master upon the suffering souls or souls trapped in ignorance, that the living entities can receive the rain of mercy of the Supreme Lord. So this is called transcendental knowledge. The origination of transcendental knowledge is God Himself, Krishna Himself. So it's only by transcendental knowledge that one can become free from this identification with this material body. So as long as identification with the material body, identification means I, let us say the spirit soul, Brahman has got, let us say, a special faculty. Just like even now, we have got, our consciousness has got a faculty by which let's say I train you to play a drama on a stage. Immediately your consciousness has got the ability to identify with the role. Suppose I say you have to play the role of a king, you can easily play. Suppose you're a man, I dress you up like a female and say, now you have to play the role of a female. Possible or not? Possible. It is just identification. You have to identify with the body, you have to identify with the situation, you have to identify with all these things. Moment you identify, then you can play that role. Just try to see how much power we have to become something, to identify and become. That is a game we are playing here. We are identified with this body. Soul has sent forth this identification energy and we say that I am this body. And that is the biggest trap. As long as the identification energy is with matter, then we have to take birth and again death. Life goes on like this. There is no eternal life. And what is wrong when everything looks nice? For instance, now you are all hearers of Srimad Bhagavatam. Somehow you have got good karma. You are having a capacity to sit here peacefully and listen. People have no capacity. They are full of problems. They have no time to come here. Their life they have to handle. Even if there is no sickness, even if there is no problem, they have to struggle for material existence. But those who are fortunate, they get a chance to hear the transcendental knowledge, which essentially says that you are not this body. You are, if you're not this body, you are what? So first we are given our definition. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, you are servant of Krishna. That means your function is to serve Krishna. Actually, your function is to serve Krishna in the spiritual world. Okay, now you hear I am a servant of Krishna is my occupational definition. So, Krishna is absolute. Even in this material world is also belong to Krishna. In this material world, let me engage in that occupation of being a servant of Krishna. So we engage in devotion service of the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Mandanam, Dasyam. Entire 9 process of devotion service we engage in the mood of being a servant of Krishna. Servant of Krishna means it is an identification. How to become liberated from this material world is very simple. But if you take to the pravritti marg, it is never simple. You will fall into janma, mrityu chakra. One cannot come out of it. The only way to come out of it is come out of stereotyped worldly affairs. Now 100% we cannot come, we are in this material world, that is why Prabhupada created so many adjustments. Grahastha life, this, that, so many things. Like in the Kardam Muni's case, he is praying for becoming a Grahastha. So Prabhupada also encouraged. But he encouraged, it is a secondary principle in the sense that one has to carry on. So utilize everything in Krishna's service. That is the spirit. One gets married in Krishna consciousness, knowing very well it is only a journey together to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, to serve the Supreme Lord. So many different things that look externally to the outsiders at what you guys are also doing. You are also a worldly organization, they say. The same way, dealing with money, dealing with different things in this material world, you are also doing the same thing, they will say. But the spirit behind it is to please Prabhupada and Krishna so that we become detached from matter and we associate with Krishna. So as I was telling, the spirit soul, now we are all Brahman. We are not this body. We are a different energy called awareness with free will. We are individuals. Now the individual can take different identities through its identifying energy. Each one of us are unique individuals. We are all particles of Brahman. Each of us have free will, awareness and free will, self-awareness and free will. My self-awareness is different from somebody else's self-awareness. And we have got that energy of self-awareness, self-identity, self-knowledge. That identity, that individual has got a capacity to identify with this body. Now I have to reverse this. I am not this body. So what is the meaning of I am not this body? Basically, is it simply knowledge? No. All the rasas of this body are not my rasas. That is the real meaning. I am not the body. Why are we coming in? Why are we identifying that I am the body? Because we wanted to get independent rasa. Rasa means all types. Sensuality, love and affection, intellectual rasa, all these rasas that are connected with this body. So many rasas are possible when you identify with the body. And that is what this drama is about life. We want to independently enjoy the rasas. So, to disconnect, rasa means what? Feeling, emotion of pleasure. That is, in another word, it is called sense gratification, different kinds of sense gratification. Therefore, we have to become free from sense gratification, because now we only know our material senses. So if I enjoy my material senses, that means automatically you are thinking that you are you. You are this body, so therefore you are enjoying. So sense gratification is contrary to coming out of the bodily concept of life. Now how can one come free from all these bodily rasas in a regulated manner? The guidance of the spiritual master is given. If one should not promote these things, and that is the nivritti marg, what is the minimum rasa that I have to feed my body, my mind, my intelligence, my social ego? What is the minimum I have to feed? I will feed. Harmlessly, I will feed. As long as it is harmless, I will feed. And then where is all your prana? All our prana is not in taking care of these minimum needs of the body. All our entire prana is going towards Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Navavidha Bhakti. Going for that. And simply by hearing about the Lord, hearing the pastimes of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one immediately receives that mercy, rain from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of transcendental knowledge. Ultimately, what is the goal of all these things that we are doing? How do we measure advancement in spiritual life? You measure advancement in spiritual life by the transcendental knowledge and detachment that comes. Jnana and Vairagya that comes out of following this process of sadhana bhakti. Jnana, Vairagya, then Raga, attachment to Krishna. Advancement of a person is not seen simply by how much he did and what he achieved and all these things. Karmis are also achieving so many things. They are moving material energy like anything. So advancement in spiritual life, it could be an indication. Because if Jnana and Vairagya is there, then Krishna will use him. Because Krishna also has a mission to move the material energy in different ways in this material world to expand this movement. That could also be an indication. You cannot say that's not an indication. Prabhupada moved the material energy and created the whole Krishna consciousness movement in this material world. He built an organization, everything he did. But that is not material power, that is spiritual power. Coming out of Jnana and Vairagya and attachment to Krishna. There may be stories of people who started nothing and build big empires in this world. But that is not the result of Jnana, Vairagya and attachment to Krishna. So, there could be a connection. But one should understand that these are all external things. Maybe, may not be. One will simply Jnana, Vairagya, and these are the actual tests. Is there transcendental knowledge? Year after year, this devotee is serving, doing more and more service. Is there awakening of transcendental knowledge and detachment and attachment to Krishna? Is this coming? It will manifest. Detachment means not case by case detachment. Detachment from this body. Oh, I am detached from this. I am detached from this. I am detached from this. Forget it. You are attached to your body first. So detachment means misidentification with this body is a person. When you say detached from the body, it is not, doesn't mean detached from the machine-like body. If you are looking at the body like a machine, then already you are detached. The problem is detached from the body means body is a person. From that you should get detached. Yantra ruddhani maya. This is a yantra. If you are able to see this body as a yantra, that is influencing my thinking, feeling, willing. If you are able to see this as a yantra, then that is beginning of detachment. Seeing things as they are. So, in the material world, the feelings that identification, relationship, these are the things that we have to regulate it. We have to know that these are all. Even if you are very attached to somebody, nature will throw you out of it, situation. At the time of death, you have to vanish. The so-called relationship is just wiped out. Nature has arranged things like that. Krishna has arranged things like that. Maya not only puts living entities in the material world, Maya also teaches great lessons. So that the living entity becomes detached from this material world and gets attached to Krishna, whose part and parcel he is. So, what is the biggest suffering for the soul? To be born again and again is the biggest suffering. But you won't understand how can this be the biggest suffering? If you don't understand how this is the biggest suffering, you won't understand the value of the person who freed you from this suffering. Why are we grateful to the spiritual master? What is Prabhupada did? Oh, some knowledge he gave, some knowledge he gave. So many people are giving knowledge in this world. Okay, he gave some spiritual knowledge. I am not this body, I am not spiritual knowledge. No. This transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge can untie you from this material world. So, if you do not know, what is the benefit of getting untied from this material world? Then you won't, if you don't have value for that, you won't have value for what Prabhupada is doing also. So you need to contemplate, what is this becoming liberated? Constant transmigration of the soul from one body to another is the cause of suffering in material existence. The spiritual master is liberating me from this. You do any kind of gratitude, it is not enough. You do any kind of glorification of spiritual master, that is still not enough for what he has done to you. What he is done is to liberate us from this material energy. Actually, we are already liberated. We are already liberated. Only thing, we are not permanently liberated. Irrevocably, we have to get liberated. If you live in the Krishna consciousness movement, you chant 16 rounds, you follow everything that Prabhupada says, already you are liberated. We are all liberated. But tomorrow if you don't chant, you will get bonded. You can call it as a day-to-day liberation program we have. Day-to-day liberated we are. It is a fact. Because it's our karma, all those things like a dam. A dam holds the water that is behind, isn't it? Now here, we are all having a dam built across us, across guna, kala and karma. A dam is built. Okay, if the dam is built, then no water will come this side at all. Isn't it? Then how I am living? How my body is functioning? My karma is not acting upon me. No, there are sluice gates in the dam. In the dam, controlled manner, water is sent out. Is it not? Similarly, once you take initiation from a pure devotee, he builds a dam across your karma. And he plays with he and the Chaitya Guru, they play with the sluice gates. How much water should come out? That is dovetailing. They guide you how to dovetail your entire attachments and everything, how to dovetail it. So there is a control. That way we are liberated from the material energy. The moment you give up the spiritual master, moment you offend the spiritual master, the degree to which we don't follow the spiritual master, when we don't follow the spiritual master, when we don't follow the four regulative principles, what we are doing is, Prabhupada is building a dam and we are constantly trying to tear down the dam. Opposite of what Prabhupada is. Prabhupada says, I am protecting you. He said, no, I want to tear it down. I want to tear down the protection. And then once, twice, thrice, Prabhupada will watch, again he will build back. More, so merciful. You've fallen, again he will build back the dam again, immediately. Give you some more realization, give you some more knowledge, and try to again and again increase your transcendental knowledge. Try to detach you person to person, situation to situation. Paramatmas, the super soul is actually trying to enlighten the living entity. But if you go on like that, then one day dam will be open. Okay, become a karmi. You don't want this. You don't deserve to be liberated. So it's a liberated life. So whatever we do, the constant downpour of water from the cloud is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in, and then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall, the rain of Krishna consciousness has fallen on all of us, can the fire of material existence be extinguished. As I said, even now, just because we are entrapped in this material world, we don't stop becoming Brahman. We are what we are. We are Brahman. Even now, we are Brahman. Just because you say, I am the body, you don't not become Brahman. You are Brahman. Every one of us is Brahman. But Brahman through ignorance is misidentifying, is trapped here. So when we awaken, then we understand our eternal situation. We never die. Just like in this material body, there is a material prakriti, in the same way there is a spiritual prakriti. Our mind becomes purified, then we get a spiritual prakriti, we can engage with all the variegatedness of all the senses, we can engage in Krishna's service. That is our original entitlement. Any questions? जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय.